In last week's video I reworked the sliding surfaces of the top slide of the lathe with as a result that my tool holder is now 2/100ths of a millimeter lower than it was before, and because of that the gib that normally of course goes in here has more free space, which means to adjust it the gib will go further in than it went before. And it also means that the adjusting screw that of course is gonna regulate the depth here will bottom out, so impossible to adjust it. And that's why I installed packing material between the gib and the body, so that the gib will be a little bit further out, and again I can adjust with my special made bolt here. And then in the comments there was a very interesting little discussion about adjusting screws. Now, as you can see in this machine on this side there are no adjusting screws, and on the other side, nope, there are no. The only way to adjust the left and right play is by using this tapered gib. The further in, the more it's tightened. That's all. And the result is, it works perfectly fine. And most of all, no play. You could maybe think that it's a little bit primitive, low adjustment on the slides, but on the milling machine only gib adjustment. On the shaper only gib adjustment. Well, okay, so sometimes you can find. This is the top slide of the other lathe, USSR lathe, and here, as you can see, there is some kind of locking screw, but it is gib adjustment. Now, I admit that the adjustment on this one looks a little bit bizarre, but that's because of the thread in here is completely mashed up, almost nothing left. So I had to improvise something else to make it work. But there is. And every time I post a video where I work on machine parts, there is always at least one comment that said I should scrape the surfaces. And let me tell you why I didn't. But first let me take off my uniform here, because it's getting warm, isn't it? The only time we use the top slide is to cut tapers or to cut threads. As a hobbyist, I don't think we do one taper or one thread a week. I think it's way less. But still, even as hobbyists, we like to do good work, precise work. And it is perfectly possible with a top slide that is not scraped. Of course, first of all, we set the right angle of the top slide. And then we install the cutting tool at center height. Now imagine that over this length there is a difference, a bow of 2/100ths of a millimeter. Let's cut, for example, this taper. Of course, we have the cutting tool on center height. Now I challenge you to install the tip of the cutting tool exactly on center height at a few microns precise. It's close to impossible, right? Now, over the length of this taper, let's say that the top slide has a bow of 2/100ths, which means my cutting tool will be at center height in the beginning and the end of the taper, and in the middle 2/100ths below. Now I didn't calculate the deviation of the tool. Of course, here we're gonna have a triangle of length of 2/100ths of a millimeter over the radius of the workpiece. I challenge you to calculate the deviation in precision. I think with the measuring tools I have here in the workshop, it's impossible to measure. And the tapers I make, they work. Okay, let's cut some threads. We install the top slide at 30 degrees, right? Let's make a metric 10, which means we have to dial in a bit less than 1.5 millimeter at 30 degrees. Now, I have here 4 different balls, but they are all metric 10. If I measure the diameter on the thread here, I have 4 different results. So precision, maybe tomorrow, I don't know. Right. Dial in 1.5 millimeter, a bit less. Over the length of my top slide there is deviation of 2/100ths. Over a length of 1.5 millimeter there's deviation of nothing. Conclusion. If you on your lathe you want to hand scrape the slides of the top slide, be my guest. But one thing's for sure, while you are still hand scraping and trying to get it perfect, I made at least 10 of these tapers and they fit. Now of course everyone that's a little bit familiar with machines probably knows all this, but there's a lot of people watching my videos that I know they never touched a lathe or whatever machine in their lives. I do. So all you non-machine people, of course you're more than welcome, and if you have any questions, please don't be afraid. Put it in the comments. Enough blah blah about hand scraping and other shit. Let's make something useful. This is the tool holder of the USSR lathe. And what I want to show you is the tools I make. And the idea is of course if I put them in, the tip of the tool is exactly on center height. No need of shims, nothing. And I made some experimental other models here and they work okay-ish, but it can be better. Most of the time I use these triangular little inserts here with 3 cutting tips, because on the other side nothing, which means these have a relief angle. Now the 3 models I have here, we can flip them. We have 6 cutting angles, and as you can see profile is different, which means this angle here is square, and that's where my experimental tool thing came into play. I have to make new. This one I would like to have straight in line so that the insert comes straight. For this kind of profile it will work better than in an angle like this one. And also this one is too low, here's not enough support. And this one, there is hardly support. So here this idea works perfectly fine, but it needs to be higher. Which means there's only one thing left to do, and that is make new. I will start by making 2, because it could well be that this part is too short. We'll see. I will install my two future cutting tools here in the shaper, but because it's too low and I don't have a big parallel, I will use a broken parting tool. Don't worry, I checked it, it's parallel. Now, before I start cutting, first I want to show something. Last week I watched a video from Nobby's workshop, and Nobby, he was making this kind of parallel that takes a difference in parallelism of your workpiece. Very nice job. And then I said in the comments, I made one too, long time ago, but it can take up of the both axes instead of one. And to do so, I took a piece of a made in Germany clamp. This part here was broke, so I had only the screw and this wobbly wibbly thingy here. So I did cut a piece off, and I took an old vice jaw that I replaced and I welded it in here. So here I have now the two axes of movement. Let me show you in the shaper. That's all. So Nobby, as promised in the comments, especially for you, I show how it works and how simple it is. And of course also for everybody else. Let's make cutting tools. We are now 2 days later, and my two future cutting tools here, they are squared up and cleaned up and ready to be cut. Now, of course, 2 days later, because sometimes I have also other things to do, just like real people. Right, now, my insert here that I use normally, I figured out that it has an angle of 7 degrees with my found out the angle thing here. 7 degrees, 97 degrees, 83, whatever. I will install the table at 7 degrees, but I also need 7 degrees that way, and I will just install my workpiece at an angle of 7 degrees in the jaws. That will be the easiest way to do. And to have some free space between the face cut and the cutting tool, I will also give it 2 degrees in a twist. It's more complicated to explain than just to do. It's touching the bolt here, but I need to twist a little bit more. So let's find shorter bolts. Okay, take 2. Right, we said 3 times 60, so here's 30. I would like to have it more this way, minus 2 degrees. No. Plus 2 degrees. Damn, I have to do some thinking. That wasn't the plan. All the angles are installed, cutter installed. I made here a little anti-bozo line, which of course guarantees nothing, but we will try not to mess up too much. Let's make something. I think this will work just fine, more or less same height. And to locate the hole here, I have a piece of crap drill bit, but that has a very nice fit in these inserts. So I will install my insert at the right location, put my drill bit in here. A little burr here. That doesn't sound good. Still alive. I have here brand new little bolts. Now I cannot tell you the size because it's of course classified information, and they are just a tiny bit too large. So I think I'm gonna put it in the lathe. Oops. I don't think this will work, because the head of the bolt is too deep in the chuck. My file can't reach here. I will try. Success! You see, if you don't try, it will never work. Test number, the next one. It seems to seat very well here on this bottom surface, and this side too. Success. Okay, all that's left to do is to cut off this part of material that I don't need. Because of course when I use the live center, I need this clearance. And because my little vise is still set up in the right angle to do the other one, I will do it in the shaper. I installed the future tool straight up in an angle, of course, in the vise. And it is a little bit a sketchy setup, but I think it's gonna work. Good enough. One moment, please. This little point here, of course, must be on center height. And as you can see, for a moment, it isn't yet. So all I have to do is to cut. It is a little bit complicated to make measurements, but it could well be that this is correct. Before I do a test run on the lathe, first a little word about angles. I set the table at 7 degrees, which means my surface here should be at 7 degrees. But of course it isn't, because of the combined angles. Now, I'm not interested in formula, how to calculate all these things. I just make and figure out, and it doesn't work, I will do something else. And that's also the reason why I didn't make the second one yet. So I didn't change the angles, so now I can test this one, and if it works, I can make the second one. Let's test. I installed here a piece of hot rolled soft steel with lots of rust pitting. So I think in the beginning it won't be great finish, but we'll see what happens. 900 RPM. That was a depth of cut of 1 millimeter. It left a little bit pitting here. And the finish is okay-ish. Let's do it again. Again 1 millimeter. And the finish is close to perfect. Let's try the other type of insert here. To me, it looks like the same result. I'm going to take a very fine pass with a very fine feed. Nice! Let's try the insert for Lum Lum. That's not bad. It's a very nice finish, but it looks a little bit more like a high-speed steel finish, and this is more the insert finish. But all in all, success. And now that I know that it works, I suppose you're gonna tell me that I should cold blue it to protect it from rusting and make it really beautiful and maybe mark my maker's name in it. No, because leaving as is for me good enough. The nice finish, I don't care. For me this is a tool, it has to do some work. It's not a finished product. Right, and now that I know that these angles here seem to work, let's make the other one.